It was about a year ago that I first did my review on the Radioddity GA-5WB. A fantastic HT, and I'm one of those people who's getting HT fatigue. I get asked all the time to review HTs. I'm kind of growing a little bit weary of it because there's another one tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. We need some of these manufacturers to differentiate themselves. Well, it wasn't but a couple of weeks after I completed my review and Radioddity stopped selling this particular radio. Now, this radio is the same thing as the VGC version, and there is also a version that is sold by BTEC here in the USA. They're all the same radio, and yep, I scored me one in crystal. So at a time when I am actually reducing my HT collection, I have increased my HT collection here. Why is that? Well, because this radio has a lot of unique features that set it apart from the competition. It's not digital, it doesn't do DMR fusion, and it is still something that has caught my interest to where I'm actually expanding. I took that review down because I don't keep reviews up that are no longer relevant. The last thing I wanted would be for you to go do a review, go over to Radioddity to buy that, and it wasn't available. So I took the video down. I'm putting the video back up. As a matter of fact, that's going to follow my short ramble here. The video and the review is still as relevant today as it was that I did it about a year ago. So this is now available again from Radioddity. Glad to see them selling it again. I'll leave a link in the description below. My link is good for $15 off a purchase at Radioddity. You should shop. You can pick these up, I think, at Two-Way Radios. You can pick these up at BTEC. I wouldn't go the Amazon route. Go to somebody who is actually a radio retailer and support them. So, why did I expand my collection here? Well, I expanded my collection because I wanted to go to the VGC Direct, even though it's the same radio and is run by the same applications, be they Android or Apple, because this wasn't being sold anymore. So I just went to VGC. I have two of these because maybe, like me, you have a spouse who has no interest in amateur radio beyond believing that it could be something very valuable in an emergency situation. Well, what if you're out with that spouse and you are the one in a life and death situation and your spouse is able to communicate and you're outside of cell phone coverage? That happens to us sometimes when we ride our bikes on some of the trails here in the outback of some of the Florida trails that are far away from civilization. I wanted a radio that I could teach my wife how to use to where she could take her phone and turn it on, turn this on, connect to her phone, choose a frequency of a repeater that I would have programmed in before the trip, and she could speak in an emergency situation where my life was threatened or the life of somebody else around us. I think this radio here could pull that off. Unlike any other HT, I wouldn't even dare try to teach my wife. This one, I could. Has a lot of other unique features. Watch the video I did a year ago. If you've already seen it, you don't need to watch it again, but I wanted to repost that video because it's a relevant review of the Radioddity version, which the only thing difference between these two radios is this one says VGC and this one says Radioddity. Here you go. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a marriage between new technology and old technology that was so solid that the new enhanced the old, but the old was not so dependent on the new that if the new was gone, the old wouldn't work anymore? I think that's some of the greatest fear when it comes to using new technology in amateur radio. We're afraid that when the new technology lets us down, the old reliable technology that could get on the air without an infrastructure will suffer. That's not the case with this radio, this HT from Radioddity that I'm going to share with you today. Hey everyone, I'm Bob, amateur radio call sign Kilo Delta 4 Bravo Mike Golf. I'm YouTuber HOA Ham. I talk about operating HF in a homeowners association using stealth antennas, and occasionally I get to share a review on some really cool gear. That's what I have today. When I say marry old with new, the new, of course, would be our smart devices. And the app that's available for this radio works with both Apple and Android. I first connected to my Apple device because this is what I carry with me all the time. I just use the Android on occasion. And since my eyesight is getting a little worse as I age, I decided to pull out the Android because of the larger screen. When I did connect it, you cannot connect both at once. It did tell me that there was an application update, or I should say a firmware update for the radio. The Apple app didn't let me know that. My experience has been when there is the same app available for both devices, many times Apple lets me down. They sucked me in a long time ago. I can't get away. It's just what I have to put up with. So when I did download this update for my firmware through the Android device, the one thing that I noticed is that the groups went from 16 channels to 32 channels. I do not know if the number of channels increased on the radio. I think it's 192. They were in groups of 16, but now they are in groups of 32. I don't think the number of channels increased. I just think that the groups got larger. I'm going to talk about groups and channels towards the end of the video because to me, that's where this radio shines. It's probably my favorite part of this, and I'll explain that later. As well, my favorite part being able to update via the app. There is no software. There is no CPS for this. You either program through the front of the radio keypad or you program through your app in your smart device. I have only found one thing so far that I cannot update directly on the radio, and that is the name of the channel group. Perhaps it's there. I haven't found it yet. The box your radio comes in is small and plain Jane, but what it lacks in pizzazz, the radio makes up for in capability. In the box, you're going to get a basic instruction manual. You'll get several of these rings that are different colors. The manuals really don't tell you what to do with those. They appear to obviously go on the end of any antenna near the base at the radio. I believe it's for this. I've tested a few other radios that have the ability to send GPS location from one person to another. This does have GPS. As a matter of fact, it has a compass setting here. There we go. So you always know what direction you are headed. And also you have GPS capability here. I'm not going to actually enter the feature when I get to it because I had this in my window on my windowsill just a few months ago. So my GPS coordinates are active. You don't need to see that. If you want to know where to send a brand new radio to me because you like me or you want me to play with it, the address is in the description below. But this does have GPS capability. Sending your location via GPS from one radio to the other is not part of APRS. The APRS functionality is completely different. I don't know APRS just simply because with all the ham that I've been trying to consume over the last several years since I became licensed, I just haven't gotten around to that. I'm sure it will be a matter of time. If you're interested in the APRS capabilities temporarily offline, has spent, I think, several videos talking about how fully functional this is on APRS. The radio claims to be IP67 rated. I'm sure it is IP67 rated, but does it function? And will it stop the ingress of water? I'm certainly going to go ahead and give that a go. It picks up AM airband. Is airband AM? Regardless, picks up airband, and I'll show you that as well because I live close to the Tampa International Airport. I really enjoy, local repeater in my home, pretty deep into the home, and with my rubber ducky, we just picked up a signal. So I'll show you airband and give you my opinion on the quality of airband. Well, spoiler alert. Yep, it's pretty good compared to other radios. So I'm happy with the airband receive on this. We'll do a power test, and then we'll check it for spurious emissions, and we'll close out the video spending a good bit more time talking about the entering of frequencies, stations, putting them into groups, and showing you how that works with your smart device. Actually, that is its greatest feature.
3 Pop Charlie. departure Southwest 2383, 1.6 for 6,000.
Southwest 2383, Panther Bus, better contact, climb to 19, 12,000.
Climb to 12,000, Southwest 2383.
Okay, 973, Panther. Here, 23 loose traffic, 11 o'clock and 4 miles northeastbound. To the center of the climb of the Panther Bus, at 12,000. That's my reference, wait number. 3 Papa Charlie, down up back to the center, 135, 375.
13575, 353 Papa Charlie.
Hotel Papa, heading 35 down.
350, Hotel down.
This is Kilo Delta 4 Bravo Mike Golf doing a sound check from the GA-5WB in the shack to the vehicle FTM 400. Check, test, no response required. This is KD4BMG doing a test from the vehicle FTM 400 to the GA-5WB in the shack. Check, test, no response required. I'm connected to my Surecom watt meter as well as a dummy load, and I'm going in and adjusting my power settings. Right now I'm on low, and I come in at about 4 watts on 70 centimeters. Let's move our power to the medium setting. I'm doing that again within the app, going into the channel and adjusting it. And on medium, we're at about 6.1 watts, and we'll close this out with a test on high. Go ahead and save the channel, key up, and we're going to come in at about 6.6 by the time everything settles down here. Now, I do want to point out that everything I'm doing here in the app you can do on the keypad and the front screen itself on the radio. Again, I'm just demonstrating how to use the app. The app is Bluetooth, and because it's Bluetooth, this is why I talk about the marriage of old and new technology. You're not going to lose Bluetooth connectivity if the grid goes down, presumably. But somehow, if Bluetooth was impacted and your phone no longer did Bluetooth, well, you could change your power settings on the radio. It's very simple. But it's even more simple than I made it here, because you can go into that one channel, and I'm going to do that now on 2 meters. And all you need to do is press the power setting. You can see on low, we came in at 5.2 watts. That seems a bit high. I changed to medium. We came in at 5.2 watts, redundant with low. That seems a little strange. And on high, we came in at 6 watts. So not quite as much of a differentiation low to high as we would expect on either 70 centimeters or 2 meters. So because I was curious at the results, I went ahead and before I did my spurious emissions test, I decided to use my Tiny SA Ultra and check the power level here. If you didn't know it, you can do that on your Tiny SA Ultra. And after all the Spurs settle down, meaning they disappear, which should give you a hint at what our spurious emissions test is going to look like, you're going to see that we come in the high 4 watts, 4.647. So just a little bit lower than what we were reading on our power meter. And remember, this is hobbyist equipment. This isn't lab grade equipment. You're not going to take this to the construction site at the local nuclear power plant, nor are you going to take this onto a nuclear submarine and calibrate equipment. This is hobbyist equipment. It's sufficient to get the job done. We'll get to this over here in just a minute and check the IP67 rating to see if it is for real. Now, remember, you can't have both apps running at the same time. The radio will only recognize one of them, and right now I have it connected to my iPhone. I use a stylus only because when I start putting my fat fingers in here, my hand gets in the way and you can't see what I'm doing. This is touchscreen, of course, with your finger. So I've been able to do everything with my iPhone app as I would want to. I can switch between talk groups. That's the wrong word. Groups. I can add channels just simply by pressing and holding. You get a blank and you can fill this in. So this works sufficiently for me, but it is not as good as the Android device. Now, that could really simply be me. Perhaps my brain is stuck in a bipolar paradigm. I can do that from time to time. but there are just a couple of things that I can't do on the iPhone that I'm able to do on the Android. So I've just gone back and forth between the two to maximize getting the most out of the radio that I possibly can. If all you have is Apple, I'm going to say it's sufficient, but you're not going to be able to do at least two things. One would be on the Android device. I can go ahead and I can add channels, stations, frequencies, and save them, and then later pull them into a group. I can't find that feature here on the iPhone app, so I just simply have to go into each group. And if I want to enter something repeatedly, I would have to re-enter it into each group, where in the Android you enter it once and then you import it into the group. The next thing here on the Apple device that I've been unable to do is simply just change, or I should say name the groups. So here we have a channel and a group feature. And in here, I can switch the device channel group. I've created these groups. I've had to name them in my Android device. I cannot find out how to name them in the Apple device. So I'm certain that somehow this app can do it. I would expect it can, and if it can't, then, Radioddity, please work with the app designer to get the Apple app a little bit more functional, because I can't change the name. All it's going to show up as in here is, channel 7, or I should say group 7. It would show up as group 7 as a blank. Channel group 6, I haven't done anything with, so there would be a channel group 7, channel group 8. So I have named them in my Android device as local, Orlando, NOAA, weather, Dallas, Pennsylvania. Why have I done that? Well, this is the greatest feature of this radio. It's why I like it so much. I can put groups to where I operate. Remember, each group, I think, can hold 32 frequencies. So 32 repeaters. 32 something, 32 repeaters plus individuals that you might want to contact on a certain frequency. So I might have those set up for my local operation. Then when I travel to Pennsylvania to be with family, I would choose the Pennsylvania group. If I travel to Dallas to be with family, I would choose the Dallas group. Orlando, you get the point. Now, why is NOAA weather in there? Well, you've already seen me do that, or here I'll do it in a couple of seconds. Let's just talk about that now. One of the features of the radio that is missing on the Radioddity version is simply it doesn't have NOAA weather channels. Well, I've added a NOAA weather group, and here's how you deal with that. This radio might look a little bit familiar to some of you with a different brand name on it. It's manufactured and then private labeled for a couple of our trusted distributors of amateur radio gear. That's not unusual. But what I did find unusual is that the Radioddity version came without NOAA weather channels. That surprised me just a bit. Not a problem. I created a group called NOAA Weather, and I went and I began adding all the NOAA weather channels, weather stations, weather frequencies that could be accessed no matter where I was traveling in the United States of America. You can then program one of the side buttons to do a scan. When you set up these frequencies, make them scannable, you go to this group of NOAA weather, hit the scan button, and everything works to what you would expect. The NOAA weather feature is intact.
Hurricane Center is Oscar, located near the central and southeastern Bahamas. Tropical cyclone formation. Marine reports along the coast and offshore buoys.
So let's go ahead and close down the Apple app, and you'll see that the icon disappeared. Now watch right here next to the little X with the microphone X. I presume that's what that is, the little speaker and X. Open up the app and you can see that it pretty quickly, I'm going to allow it to record. I'm going to allow it anything else it needs to move forward. Come on, there we go. Yep, let's do that. Sure, let's do it. And you can see that now I have a little icon there that shows that my device is connected. So here, let's go in and let's find our groups, channels and groups. Here you can see these are the groups that I've already created. I haven't put anything into the Dallas group yet, but in the NOAA weather, I have all of my NOAA weather stations. In the local, I've begun to populate it with my local groups, my local repeaters that are near me in the NI4CE repeater system. I'll do that for some other repeater systems that I use here. So I think I've already shown this in the radio itself. Let's see if I can watch my screen rather than the actual radio. So I'm looking at my computer screen to do this, a little bit cumbersome, but we can just go down here and we can choose our channel group right here. And you can see I've got local, Orlando, NOAA weather, Dallas, etc. And I can select one of these groups here. So that is how you use the features of the app to work with your radio. And I'm going to say again, this is absolutely its greatest feature, and it is the feature that draws me to this radio. If I lose internet, if the cell towers go down, if cell service stops working, I have a marriage of old technology to new. Bluetooth should still allow me to program my radio and do all the functionality with the radio that I would want to through the app. If Bluetooth stops working and the app stops working, I can still do it through the front end keyboard and screen of the radio itself. We're going to run our spurious emissions test first on low, then we'll jump up to high. I'm not going to tell you how you should feel about spurious emissions or whether or not you should use a radio that has spurious emissions. I am going to test and tell you whether it does or does not. Remember, this is hobbyist's gear that I'm using to test, the Tiny SA Ultra. It is good enough to give us an indicator as to whether or not we have a clean radio. Within a couple of seconds, once the Tiny SA settles down, we can see there's not a single spur on low power, which remember, low power here was already up over 5 watts on 146520. So when we go to high power, we're likely going to see the exact same thing. Let's go ahead and key up. We'll give our Tiny SA Ultra the appropriate amount of time to settle down. I'll speed it up here so we can get to the final result. And yes, we have a radio that does not have any spurious emissions. It is indeed clean. Give me an IP67 rated radio, and this is what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to submerge it for 30 minutes and just confirm that the rating is for real. So I will have water about 3/4 to 1 inch above the connection between the antenna and the radio to be sure that every possible location of ingress for water is protected and that the radio will survive. The video will close out with me just doing a radio check back and forth from the radio to be sure that everything is working properly after this test. So I'll say 73 now, but first let me tell you and answer the question for you. Do I like this radio? Would I put my own money on the table to buy this radio? Do I recommend this radio to you? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. This is a mid-range radio from a pricing perspective. And it falls right in between. If you go back to that airband test, we had the extremes of prices of radios, and this falls right in the middle of that. I like the features of this radio. This isn't a digital radio, no DMR, no Wires X, System Fusion, D-Star. It's an analog UHF, VHF radio that does APRS, and I believe it has that ability to send a GPS coordinate back and forth between radios that are similarly equipped. So I really like that feature. I like the fact that we have a USB-C charging port on this radio. Not quick charge, not fast charge, just regular old school charge, but USB-C instead of micro USB and those others that, you know, are so ancient now we even forget what they're called. Is there anything I don't like about the radio? Well, the one thing that I really like about the radio that is the draw is the ability to use the applications with our smart devices. That is an incredibly useful feature to me. I want CPS having those apps. That said, the apps are a little bit clunky, especially the iPhone app, and I think there's an opportunity to improve upon that. I went back and forth between using my iPhone and my Android tablet. The Android app is much more user-friendly, and I covered that earlier in the video. So I think the application is the only thing I would say that is a weakness of this radio. The The documentation, Radioddity is really, really good with their documentation. I think it's likely that they use the documentation for this radio that came from the OEM of this equipment. So it's not quite up to the Radioddity standards that I'm used to. And again, those two things that I pointed out as some weaknesses, I believe are opportunities that can easily be improved upon as Radioddity keeps this in their product line and continues to develop it. I really like the app feature. I really like being able to break up all of my channels, my frequencies into groups, and then I can change my groups as I travel to different locations, or even if I stay local. I mean, 32 channels, that's pretty good for me local, but if I wanted to even break up a couple of local groups, for either, one recreation and one MCOM, I could do that as well. I really like that capability to create groups. That is, without a doubt, its strongest feature. Being able to update the radio on the fly via Bluetooth, and if you would somehow lose Bluetooth with your smart device, you have the ability to program the radio from the keypad and the screen. I always put a stubby antenna on top of all of my HTs, and this is the G-Gable radio stubby antenna. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in that. It's possibly one of the most frequently asked questions I get. Hey, what's that antenna that you're using? Absolutely recommend this HT, like it a lot. So let's do that. Let's close out this dunk test and do those radio checks. Okay, we hit our 30-minute mark. I love tests like this. All right, so the truck is outside and we're on 2-meter simplex. Let's just go ahead and key up to the truck, and then I'll go out to the truck and do the reverse. This is KD4 BMG on simplex, testing the Radioddity GA-5WB, and we're testing it for transmission after the dunk test. Again, KD4 BMG testing on simplex, the GA-5WB to the FTM 400 in the truck. Check, check, test, test, no response required. All right, let's get the microphone in place. Bear with me. Live tests here. Get me out of the way. And we'll go do the same thing out from the truck. Hang on, be right back. This is KD4 BMG testing from the FTM 400 in the truck. Back to the dunk test radio in the shack. Check, check, test, test, no response required. KD4 BMG, clear.